So, I was reading somewhere recently that I need to keep my YouTube intro under 15 seconds for that maximum quick hook. So, we're gonna try it out and see if this works. So, here goes. Are you looking for a brand new mid-range smartphone that is fantastic, but you don't want to spend too much and you don't need 5G? Well, in that case, this phone might be your jam. I think that alone is more than 15 seconds. But who cares, guys? This is the Samsung A52. So let's check out the video right after these messages, but TLDR, this one is pretty darn fantastic. Let's do it! Alright, as usual, let's run through some quick specs first before we take a deeper dive into things. And feel free to use the quick jumps down below to move between sections if you must. So, the A52 runs $370, but I've seen this as low as $350 on Amazon and falling, so that's a good thing. But if you do want the 5G version, you still have to fork up $500 at this point because it is brand new. But that being said, they're basically the same phone. The screen is the same and everything, storage, RAM, and whatever, except for a slightly faster processor and GPU, and obviously 5G for the 5G model. As you can see, it also has a smooth 6.5-inch 90Hz Super AMOLED screen, one of the best at this price range. Really nice and punchy. 800 nits, very usable in bright sunlight, Full HD Plus with an on-screen fingerprint sensor here at the bottom behind the glass. In the background, there's 6GB of DDR4 RAM and 128 gigs of onboard storage, expandable with a micro SD at the top here. And doing all the business in the back too is a Snapdragon 720G with its own Adreno 618 GPU, which is really the same as the Samsung's own larger A72 and the Motorola One Fusion Plus. The 4500 mAh battery in this thing allowed me to almost hit the 2-day mark, especially when used moderately. There's a solid IP67 dust and water resistance, which is pretty darn impressive at this price point, or even for devices that cost a whole lot more than this thing. And also thanks to the nice plastic build at the back, it weighs only a light 190 grams. In terms of OS, it runs Android 11 with a One UI 3.1 skin thrown on top of this. Now, if you like what you're seeing so far, guys, consider hitting that subscribe and like button down below. Thank you very much. Let's move on to the close-up. Let's start with the overall build. The screen is protected by a layer of Gorilla Glass 5, and on the back here you have this matte plastic back cover that's really nice to look at, and it offers a decent amount of grip, and it hides smudges pretty well too, and up to a point also scratches. I think there's some kind of self-healing ability to this. And yeah, I tell you what, the colorways on these are so attractive, especially in this matte finish. Really nice. It's a shame that most of us will slap a case over this the moment we buy it, but it is what it is, right? The frame, everything is plastic, so are the buttons, acceptable at this price point. My fingernails don't catch on the edge of the screen where the frame meets. Really well built. I can do this, try to bend this, and there's no creaking or any kind of visible deformation. Really good stuff. Now, the selfie camera, let's look at that too. The front here is a pinhole one, and it rocks 32 megapixels at f2.2 and can capture 4K video at 30 frames per second. The rear camera array is housed in this bump right here that sits about 1.25 to 1.5 millimeters away from the body, so this will cause it to wobble on a flat surface, and this can be solved with a case. I know it'll hide the color and everything, but the case will level out to make this nice and flat at the back, at least presumably. Now, the rear main shooter is this one. The middle is a 64 megapixel main unit with f1.8, and very importantly has optical image stabilization. That's cool. And at the top here is the ultra wide 12 megapixeler at 123 degrees field of view, and down here is a 5 megapixel macro lens, and over here is the 5 megapixel depth sensor. It's not a camera at all, it's just a sensor. And down here is the flashlight LED. It's nice and bright, but it doesn't offer a lot of thrill. At the bottom of the phone is the USB-C charging port, and it's flanked by a single firing bottom speaker. I wish this was stereo because as it is, it's easily covered by the palm, even though it does get loud enough. And over on the right here is a 3.5mm headphone jack. This is like a unicorn nowadays, and it's really nice to see this here. Here's one of the microphone ports, and the other microphone port is right here at the top. This other hole is actually the pin hole to open up the SIM card tray, and this is actually a hybrid SIM card tray. You can have either a nano SIM and a regular SIM, or if you want just to keep a nano SIM and a micro SD card slot, you can do that. It's your choice. Over on the right here is the, as we saw earlier, the volume toggle switches and the power button, and they're all nice and smooth. They're not, knurled and grippy in any way. And speaking of smooth, the left side is just that. So I'll tell you this, using this device on a day-to-day basis, you find that the performance of the system and the UI itself and this bright 90Hz screen combo to be ideal. From social media, camera usage, multitasking, low-intensity gaming, most run without a hitch. It's only when you introduce processor-demanding chores like media editing or games like Asphalt 9 or, Lord forbid, Genshin Impact is when you start noticing frequent starting and pauses even at the lowest graphic settings. For what it's worth, I ran tests on Geekbench 5. I'm going to show the scores here. Geekbench 5 and 3D Mark. And when you see this, they're comparatively really low. They're kind of sad looking. And especially if you compare this with Samsung's higher end S21s and such, it's twice the number. But this, don't forget, this is a mid-range device. And it's really amazing how smooth it is. As long as you don't push it, it's really fine. Alright, let's start with a simple one. This was shot from the hip, full auto. And by the way, go ahead and pause the video if you need to scrutinize each of the samples further. And then the next shot we have the ultra wide, and this has a good quality lens even though it's only 12 megapixels. As long as there's good light, in low light it really suffers. Now this next picture, I brought in my Pixel 2 XL here, and it brings more realistic colors in the trees, grass, and the sky, while the Samsung punches the saturation way up. Both do great at the exposure though. Now here's 4x zoom from the Samsung. Then we have both phones at maximum digital zoom. The Samsung is at 10x and the Pixel at 8. Samsung seems overzealous, I'm not sure if you're seeing this, but overzealous with the sharpening here. And again, I prefer the color accuracy and detail on the Google. Now, indoor daytime. The Google on the right produces the most accurate pictures of the interior details and lighting, but the Samsung dials back the light to control that exposed window that you see there that Google doesn't seem to compute well. Again, the Samsung's photo is more Instagrammable, while the Pixel's is way more realistic. You just have to take your pick. Under direct sunlight, the macro lens, as you can see here, is workable, but in the shade or low light, I'll say just skip it. Now, we come to night mode, and this is how Samsung does it. With good exposure, controlling noise really well, though the white balance is too white, while pushing the blues and the greens way too much. Google's night sight, on the other hand, is more realistic in this case, and that glow in the sky that you see is actually from the city, so it's pretty spot on. It does raise the exposure time, however, so it increases noise, especially around the trees on the right side as well as the sky. So this is taken with the selfie camera. How's my voice? And the picture is kind of okay. It's nice and sharp, 32 megapixels. The colors are a little bit boosted and the exposure is kind of wonky, but very, very usable. Oh yes, almost forgot to mention that there is no image stabilization on the front camera, so bear that in mind. Here we see the difference in how each phone handles movement and shakes. The Samsung below, even with the OIS, is less controlled than the Pixel. That said, you'll notice that the Google phone also achieves this by cropping into the image way more. And there seems to be more ghosting, unless I'm mistaken, than the A52, especially when you pan quickly left or right. On the other hand, the additional megapixels on the Samsung definitely help with the extra detail. So in this case, I prefer it. But I have to say again that the colors are just too realistic. It's too blue in the sky, too green in the trees, not the actual scene. Most of you may not care about that, but I kind of do. Alright, here are my 5 favorite things about the A52. And the first one of all is the design. I mean, just look at this thing. From the matte plastics to the design philosophy that kind of matches the S20, S21 product line, which is great because now you don't have to be embarrassed taking this out of your pocket and all your friends going like, there's Aaron and his cheap budget phone again, because Samsung phones are starting to look alike, so you're safe there. And it's only under close scrutiny where things fall apart, but even then you're safe because you have COVID to thank for. You know, social distancing and all, they can't look at your phone. The next one on the list is the screen. And this is like a no-brainer at this point because anytime you hear Samsung and Super AMOLED, it's gonna be fantastic. This thing is bright, vivid, and punchy, and power sipping as well. And the fact that you can use this outdoors in bright daylight, like right now, sunlight, I can go outside, take pictures, and look at the screen, and it'll boost it up maximum brightness, 800 nits. This thing is fantastic. It's worth the price of entry alone. If you've been around long enough, you probably remember Samsung's old UI called TouchWiz. Remember that? I had PTSD from that because of all the psychedelics and all the jumble of icons and the third-party apps that you can't uninstall. It was just a mess. And thankfully, One UI 3.1 is nice and smooth now. It is so lightweight, but still carries over the customization that Samsung is known for. And I love it because if you want it to be complex, you can customize it to death. But if you just want to leave it alone, it's there. So thank you, Samsung, for lightening up One UI. One of the reasons why this channel exists is to highlight products that have a good feature to price ratio, and the A52 not only does that, it also adds performance to the whole mix, so you have a good balance of performance, features, and price to weight ratio, so that's a winner in my book. So it's winner winner chicken dinner. Did I say that right? Or is it winner chicken? Anyways. And one of the best things that Samsung is doing right now is their update cycles. Get this, we get 4 years worth of security and software updates, while Google, the originator of Android, gives us 3. That's kind of sad, right? So Google, you need to get off your high horse and get back to work, and Samsung, kudos to you for lighting the fire under their butts. Okay, now for the negatives, and the first thing I have to say is that the macro lens, not just on this phone, but in general, has to die. It's like a gimmick that's overstayed its welcome at this point, and sure, this is a 5 megapixeler now compared to the 2 from the past, but it's still too grainy and low quality to be used on social media, especially in low light. It just falls apart. I don't want it anymore. So Samsung at least introduced one of the new trends, like a decent super zoom, or one of those cool microscopic high-res cameras. That would be super nice. So the macro lens has to die. We can in fact sign a petition down there somewhere and just, petition it for it to go away already. The next negative comes with the territory actually, because if you own one of these devices, you got to understand that graphics is not going to be smooth and awesome, especially if you're doing high intensity gaming or a lot of video editing and such. So if you're planning to do any of those, budget for something higher, because as it is, it's going to suffer. As we saw earlier, it just stutters anything more than moderate. But that being said, I wish Samsung had planned for this and give us a slightly newer chip, slightly more powerful chip, and a little bit more RAM. That could have helped things a lot. I know there's an 8GB model out there, but I haven't been able to get my hands on it to test it out, but I think that might have made a difference. And the last thumbs down is not with the A52 itself, so you're off the hook, but it's with its 5G cousin. So if you're looking or eyeing the 5G model, don't buy it. It's $130, $150 more for a little bit of a spec bump and the 5G chip, but that's about it. And I think the OnePlus N10 5G is a better bet for you guys if you're looking for something affordable and powerful and has 5G at the same time. So in the A51 review that I did, somewhere up there, I praised its performance, its camera, its screen, and again, I can say the same thing after doing this video. The A52 is the same. And then some, because lately Samsung has been taking their budget and mid-range phones very seriously, and in the case of the A52, from the silicone choices to the UI experience to the camera set, except for the macro, to the design that kind of mimics its more expensive cousins, to the update cycle and the price too, is proof that you don't need to fork out for an S21, for example, unless you want the best of the best or you're into mobile photography or high-end gaming. But as it is, the A52 is one of my top favorite phones at this price range so far. So it earns a Gear Up score of 8.2 out of 10. And this is how I broke it down to get to the final score. If you have any questions about how I got there, feel free to comment down below. Well, there you have it, guys. Thank you so much for watching this. And by the way, I have a couple of announcements, and I think they're good news. So, as you know, I publish videos every Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time US or -4 hours GMT. But I'm thinking of creating a second video at the beginning of the week because you guys have been asking for more content from Gear Up. So I'm thinking of experimenting with that, with unboxings or mini reviews or some kind of news vlog where I talk about my ideas or comment about news and such like that. So you can comment down below and let me know what you think. The other thing that I'm also doing at the beginning of the week too, with no set schedule also, is that I'm working with a tech site called Hot Hardware, and I'll link it down below. Don't laugh at the name, by the way, but I'll be doing content that's not on Gear Up, like Chromebook comparisons and such. So I'm excited about trying that out. You can comment down below and just ask me or tell me what you think about it. And that's why also it's important when you subscribe to turn on the bell notification icon, because since there's no set schedule for these videos, you'll be notified whenever I push it anytime in the week. Could be Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. But anyways, remember to subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, and visit my Patreon page down here where you can buy me a cup of coffee or tea or something, and the same thing with the YouTube or blog button. Now, thumbs up if you like this video. There's no thumbs down this time because I've taken up enough of your time. Remember to do something loving and kind for somebody, guys, and I can't wait to see you next time. So peace out, and until next time.